The night before my wedding, my stepmother poured bleach on what she thought was my dress, whispering, "Let's see how perfect your day is now." But she grabbed the wrong garment bag and destroyed her own $5,000 dress instead. This morning, she came crying, "Please, we're the same size, can I borrow yours? All the stores are closed." I just smiled and said no. And now she's crashing out. Some background: my dad married Helena when I was 16. She's one of those women who has to be the center of attention at every event, and she's never liked me because I remind her that my dad had a whole life before her. My mom died when I was 12, and Helena has always resented that I kept photos of her around the house and that dad still speaks fondly of her memory. Helena has made my life difficult in small ways over the years, forgetting to save me dinner, scheduling family events on days she knew I had important plans, that sort of thing. But she's always been careful to do it in ways that seem accidental or that she can blame on miscommunication. My dad, bless him, loves her and tends to give her the benefit of the doubt. Fast forward to 3 months ago when I got engaged to my boyfriend Dimitri. We've been together for 4 years, and he's absolutely wonderful. When we announced our engagement, Helena's first comment wasn't congratulations, it was asking if she could wear white to the wedding since Ivory would wash her out. I shut that down immediately, but it set the tone for the entire wedding planning process. She inserted herself into everything. She had opinions about the venue: too small, the flowers, too simple, the menu, too ethnic. Apparently serving Greek food at a Greek wedding was limiting our options. She kept pushing for changes that would make the wedding more about what she wanted and less about what Dimitri and I actually liked. The worst part was how she kept trying to upstage me. When I found my dress, a beautiful, simple A-line gown that made me feel like a princess, she went out and bought something that cost twice as much. A $5,000 designer number that was honestly gorgeous but completely inappropriate for a wedding where she wasn't the bride. It was this stunning emerald green silk creation with beading in a train. When she showed it to me, she made sure to mention the price tag 3 times and how the boutique said it was definitely more sophisticated than what younger brides usually choose. I bit my tongue because I didn't want to cause drama before my wedding, but inside I was fuming. This woman was going to show up to my wedding looking like she was headed to the Met Gala, clearly trying to outshine me on my own day. The real problem started during the rehearsal dinner. Helena had been drinking, not heavily, but enough to make her bold. She kept making little comments about how some people don't know how to plan elegant events and how she hoped the wedding photos would turn out well despite the amateur choices we'd made. Then she started in on my dress. In front of everyone, she said, "I just hope Sophia's dress photographs well. Some fabrics can look so cheap in pictures, especially under those harsh church lights." My future mother-in-law, Katerina, looked ready to throw her wine at Helena, but I squeezed her hand under the table. I didn't want to make a scene. After dinner, most people went home, but the wedding party and immediate family came back to my dad's house for a nightcap. My dress was hanging in my old bedroom upstairs. I was staying there the night before the wedding for sentimental reasons, and it seemed easier than transporting it in the morning. Helena had brought her dress over too, since she was getting ready at the house with me and my bridesmaids. The garment bags were hanging side by side in my closet, mine in a white bag with bride embroidered on it, and hers in a plain black bag from the boutique. Around midnight, everyone started heading to bed. I was exhausted and more than ready for the night to be over. I hugged everyone goodbye, confirmed the timeline for the morning, and headed upstairs to get some sleep. I should mention that I'm a very light sleeper, and the old house creaks like crazy. So when I heard footsteps in the hallway around 2 a.m., I woke up immediately. At first I thought maybe someone was using the bathroom, but then I heard my bedroom door open very quietly. I lay there frozen, trying to figure out what was happening. Through my barely cracked eyelids, I could see a figure moving around my room. It was Helena. I could tell by her silhouette and the way she moved. She was being incredibly quiet, tiptoeing around like she was trying not to wake me. My heart was pounding, but I forced myself to stay completely still and breathe like I was asleep. I watched as she went to my closet and very carefully unzipped what she thought was my garment bag. What happened next still gives me chills. She pulled out a small bottle. I couldn't see exactly what it was in the dark, but she opened it and started pouring liquid all over the dress inside the bag. The smell hit me immediately: bleach. I wanted to scream, to jump up and stop her, but I was so shocked that I couldn't move. I just lay there watching this woman try to destroy my wedding dress the night before my wedding. She was muttering under her breath, and I caught fragments: "Perfect little princess. See how perfect. Not so special." After she finished pouring the bleach, she zipped the bag back up, crept out of my room, and I heard her go back downstairs. I lay there shaking, trying to process what had just happened. Part of me wondered if I was having a nightmare, but the smell of bleach was definitely real. I waited about 10 minutes to make sure she was really gone, then got up and turned on the light. I opened my closet, and that's when I realized what had actually happened. The bags had been switched. I don't know if Helena had moved them earlier when she hung up her dress, or if they'd gotten switched when the cleaning lady tidied up, but the bride bag was on the left side of the closet where Helena's bag had been hanging earlier. In the dark, she'd grabbed the bag that was in the position where mine should have been, which was actually her own dress. I unzipped the black garment bag with shaking hands, and there it was, my beautiful, perfect, completely untouched wedding dress. Then I opened the other bag. Helena's $5,000 designer dress was ruined. The bleach had eaten through the silk in several places, leaving gaping holes, and the areas that weren't completely destroyed were stained beyond repair. The beading was falling off where the bleach had weakened the threads. It looked like someone had taken a blowtorch to it. I stood there staring at the destroyed dress, and I'll be honest, I started laughing. Quietly, because I didn't want to wake anyone, but I couldn't help it. The cosmic justice of it all was just too perfect. I took pictures of everything with my phone, then carefully put both dresses back and went to bed. I didn't sleep much, but it wasn't from anxiety about my wedding anymore. I was actually excited to see how this would play out. The next morning, my bridesmaids, Anastasia, Maria, and Penelope, arrived at 8 a.m. to start getting ready. We were all having coffee and getting our hair done when we heard a shriek from upstairs. Sophia! Sophia, get up here right now. We all looked at each other. My maid of honor Anastasia raised an eyebrow. That doesn't sound like happy wedding day energy. I played dumb. I wonder what's wrong. Maybe you guys should start on makeup while I go check. I went upstairs to find Helena standing in my room holding the remains of her dress, tears streaming down her face. When she saw me, she immediately started yelling. Look what happened. Someone broke into the house and destroyed my dress. This is a disaster. What am I going to wear to your wedding? We need to call the police. I looked at the dress and gasped dramatically. Oh my gosh, Helena. That's terrible. What happened? I don't know. I came up to get ready and found it like this. There are holes everywhere. Someone must have poured acid or something on it. She was spiraling, pacing around the room and gesturing wildly with the ruined dress. This cost $5,000? $5,000. And now it's completely destroyed. The wedding is in 4 hours. What am I supposed to do? I put on my most sympathetic face. I'm so sorry this happened. That's just awful. Then she stopped pacing and looked at me with this calculating expression that I knew all too well. We're the same size. What? We're the same size, she repeated, and I could practically see the wheels turning in her head. Your dress. I could wear your dress. I blinked at her. My wedding dress? Just for the ceremony. You could change into something else. Or we could find you something simple at the mall. The stores might open early if we call and explain it's an emergency. The audacity was breathtaking. Helena, it's my wedding dress. For my wedding? That's happening in 4 hours. But I don't have anything else to wear. All the stores are closed. Please, Sophia, we're family. This was the moment I'd been waiting for all morning. I looked her straight in the eye and smiled. No. The word hung in the air between us. Helena's face went through about 5 different expressions in 2 seconds. What do you mean, no? I mean no. You can't wear my wedding dress to my wedding. But you don't understand. I have nothing to wear. I can't show up naked. I'm sure you'll figure something out. Maybe you have something in your regular wardrobe that would work. Nothing appropriate for a wedding. Everything I own is either too casual or too formal. This dress was perfect. She was getting more agitated by the second, her voice rising to a near shriek. I could hear my bridesmaids downstairs pretending not to listen to every word. I'm really sorry about your dress, Helena, but I'm not lending you mine. Fine. Fine. Then I'm not coming to your wedding. That's your choice. She stared at me like I'd slapped her. I think she expected me to cave and beg her to reconsider. When I didn't, she completely lost it. You selfish little brat. This is all your fault somehow. You probably did this yourself for attention. I destroyed your dress? You. I don't know how, but this has to be connected to you somehow. Things like this don't just happen. I maintained my calm smile. Helena, I was asleep. My bridesmaids can tell you what time they arrived this morning. I've been downstairs with them the whole time until you called me up here. She was grasping at straws now, and she knew it. Well, maybe one of your friends did it. They never liked me. Why would my friend sneak into the house in the middle of the night to pour bleach on a dress? I don't know. But someone did this. You're right, I said, still smiling. Someone did do this. Something in my tone must have gotten through to her because she stopped ranting and really looked at me for the first time. I saw the exact moment when she started to wonder if I knew something. What? What do you mean? I mean someone definitely poured bleach on that dress. The question is who? We stared at each other for a long moment. I could see her trying to figure out if I was implying what she thought I was implying, and whether I could possibly know what she'd done. Finally, she played her last card. I'm telling your father about this. About how cruel you're being on your wedding day. How you're refusing to help family in a crisis. Go ahead. I'm sure Dad would love to hear all about what happened to your dress. Helena stomped downstairs, and I heard her on the phone with my dad, who was getting ready at Dimitri's parents' house with the rest of the men. I couldn't hear his side of the conversation, but I could hear her getting more and more worked up. She won't let me borrow her dress. I know it sounds crazy, but mine is completely ruined. Yes, ruined. Someone poured bleach all over it. I don't know who. She's being completely unreasonable. Yes, I know it's her wedding day, but this is an emergency. There was a long pause, then, what do you mean, what was I doing with bleach? I wasn't doing anything with bleach. Why would you even ask that? Fine. Fine. I'll figure it out myself. She hung up and I heard her stomping around downstairs. My bridesmaids were very quiet. About 20 minutes later, she came back upstairs. Her whole demeanor had changed. The hysterical anger was gone, replaced by this cold, calculated calmness that was somehow more unsettling. I know what you're doing, she said quietly. What am I doing? You know something. About my dress. You know what really happened. I tilted my head innocently. What really happened? Stop playing games, Sophia. If you know something, just say it. I know that your dress is ruined and you want to wear mine, and I said no. That's all I know. She studied my face for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. The next few hours were actually pretty peaceful. My bridesmaids and I finished getting ready, and honestly, it was the most relaxed I'd felt during the entire wedding planning process. There was something liberating about knowing that Helena's plan to upstage me had backfired so spectacularly. Around noon, my dad arrived to pick me up for the church. He took one look at me in my dress and started tearing up. You look just like your mother, he said, which is the highest compliment he could give me. Dad, about Helena's dress. He held up a hand. I don't want to know. Whatever happened, happened. She'll figure it out. Is she still coming to the wedding? She says she is. She found something to wear, apparently. I was curious about what she'd managed to come up with on short notice, but honestly, I was too happy to care much. My wedding day was perfect, my dress was perfect, and Helena's sabotage had blown up in her face. What more could I ask for? The ceremony was beautiful. Dimitri cried when he saw me walking down the aisle. The church was full of people who loved us, and everything went exactly as we planned. Helena did show up, wearing a simple black cocktail dress that was entirely appropriate and looked like it came from her regular wardrobe. She sat in the back with my dad, didn't cause any scenes, and looked absolutely miserable the entire time. At the reception, she avoided me completely. She sat at her assigned table, picked at her food, and left early without saying goodbye to anyone. My dad apologized for her, saying she had a headache. It wasn't until the next day, when Dimitri and I got back from our honeymoon suite at the hotel, that I learned the full extent of Helena's crash-out. Apparently, after she left the reception, she went home and had a complete meltdown. She called several family members to complain about how I'd ruined her wedding experience, and how the whole day had been a disaster. She told people that I'd been cruel and vindictive, refusing to help her in a crisis. But here's where it gets really good. She also called her sister Theodora, who she's always tried to impress, and told her the whole story about her dress being mysteriously destroyed. She was looking for sympathy and support. Theodora, who is apparently much smarter than Helena gives her credit for, asked some very pointed questions. Like why Helena was hanging her dress in my room instead of the guest room where she was supposed to be staying. And why she happened to have bleach with her at my dad's house. And why the vandal would target her dress instead of mine. By the end of the conversation, Theodora had basically figured out what really happened. And instead of keeping it to herself, she shared her theory with several other family members. Within a day, the story had made its way through Helena's entire social circle. Everyone was talking about how Helena had tried to sabotage my wedding dress and ended up destroying her own expensive gown instead. The best part? Several people who knew Helena well said it made perfect sense. Apparently, she had a history of petty, vindictive behavior that most of the family just ignored because it was easier than confronting her. When my dad found out what people were saying, he was devastated. He confronted Helena, and she finally admitted what she'd done. According to him, she broke down crying and claimed she'd been drinking and wasn't thinking clearly, that she was just so jealous of how perfect everything was for me and she wanted to level the playing field. Dad was furious. Not just about what she tried to do to me, but about how she put him in the position of unknowingly defending her after she'd tried to sabotage his daughter's wedding. They're now in marriage counseling, and Helena has been told she needs to apologize to me and make amends. She sent me a text last week asking if we could meet for coffee to clear the air. I haven't responded yet. Part of me wants to hear what she has to say, and part of me thinks she's had enough natural consequences for her actions without me needing to engage further. But I have to admit, every time I think about her standing in my room at 2 a.m., carefully pouring bleach all over what she thought was my wedding dress, only to discover the next morning that she destroyed her own $5,000 gown instead. Well, let's just say I believe in justice now. The funny thing is, if she'd just been happy for me and worn something appropriate to my wedding, none of this would have happened. She created her own disaster by trying to create one for me. My dress, by the way, is safely preserved and hanging in my closet at home. Every time I see it, I'm reminded of the most perfect example of instant justice I've ever witnessed. And yes, Dimitri and I are extremely happy. Our marriage is off to a great start, and we're already planning our first anniversary celebration. Helena won't be invited to that either. Update, added 2 hours later. Oh my gosh, this blew up. Thank you for all the awards and comments. A few people asked for clarification on some details. Yes, I'm absolutely certain it was Helena. I saw her face clearly when she turned toward the light from the hallway, and I recognized her voice when she was muttering. No, I didn't confront her immediately because I was honestly in shock, and I wanted to see how it played out. Also, I knew that catching her in the act wouldn't necessarily prove anything since she could claim she was sleepwalking or make up some other excuse. Yes, my dad is disappointed in me for not telling him immediately, but he understands why I handled it the way I did. He's more upset with Helena for putting me in that position in the first place. Several people asked if I feel bad about not lending her my dress. The answer is absolutely not. Even if she hadn't tried to destroy it, expecting to wear the bride's dress to the bride's wedding is insane. The audacity was breathtaking. Someone asked what happened to Helena's ruined dress. As far as I know, she threw it away. $5,000 down the drain because she couldn't stand the thought of me having a perfect wedding day. Thanks again for reading and for all the support. It feels good to finally tell this story. Final update. Helena and I did meet for coffee last week. She apologized and admitted what she'd done, claiming she was in a dark place and jealous of my happiness. She offered to pay for my dress cleaning, it didn't need it, and asked if we could start over. I told her I appreciated the apology, but that trust, once broken, is very hard to rebuild. I said I was willing to be civil at family events, but that I wasn't interested in having a close relationship with someone who would try to sabotage my wedding. She didn't take it well and accused me of being unforgiving and holding grudges. I reminded her that she literally tried to destroy my wedding dress with bleach 12 hours before my wedding, and that the only reason it didn't work was because she grabbed the wrong bag. She left crying, and I haven't heard from her since. My dad says she's telling people I refuse to accept her sincere apology and that I'm keeping the family divided. But you know what? I'm okay with that. Some actions have permanent consequences, and trying to ruin someone's wedding day is one of them. I'm happy, my marriage is strong, and I don't need her drama in my life. Sometimes the best revenge really is just living well. Edit, added 3 days later. You guys, I cannot believe what happened. I thought this story was over, but Helena apparently wasn't done making a fool of herself. So remember how I mentioned that Helena has been telling people I refuse to accept her sincere apology? Well, it turns out she's been doing a lot more than just complaining to family members. Yesterday, my cousin Nikos called me laughing so hard he could barely speak. Apparently, Helena has been posting on Facebook about the whole situation. Not the truth, obviously, but her own twisted version where she's the victim. According to her posts, here's what really happened. She was the victim of a vicious prank where someone, heavily implying it was me or my friends, broke into the house and destroyed her dress as a cruel joke. She then humbly asked if she could borrow something to wear, and I cruelly refused because I wanted to humiliate her at my own wedding. She painted herself as this long-suffering stepmother who has always tried to welcome me with open arms but has been met with coldness and hostility from day one. She claimed that my jealousy of her relationship with my father has made me vindictive and spiteful. The best part? She posted photos of the destroyed dress with a caption about how some people will go to any lengths to hurt innocent family members and asking for prayers during this difficult time. I was initially furious, but then Nico sent me screenshots of the comments, and I started laughing instead. Apparently, Helena forgot that social media has a memory, and several people remembered her previous posts about the dress. You know, the ones where she bragged about how expensive it was and how it was definitely more sophisticated than what younger brides usually choose. But more importantly, people remembered her posts from the weeks leading up to my wedding. Posts where she complained about our ethnic menu choices, criticized our amateur decorating decisions, and made passive-aggressive comments about young people not understanding elegance. So when she tried to play the innocent victim, people weren't buying it. The comments were brutal. Helena's own friends were calling her out, with several people pointing out that her story didn't make sense. Why would someone break into the house just to destroy her dress and leave everything else untouched? Why would they use bleach instead of just cutting or staining it? And why would they target the stepmother instead of the bride? But the real nail in the coffin came from an unexpected source, Penelope, one of my bridesmaids, who happens to be friends with Helena's hairdresser. Apparently, Helena had gone to get her hair done the day after my wedding, and she was so upset about the whole situation that she ended up telling her hairdresser the truth. The whole truth. Including the part about sneaking into my room with bleach and accidentally destroying her own dress. The hairdresser, who is apparently a bit of a gossip, had already told several clients about Helena's crazy wedding story before Helena started posting her fake version on Facebook. So when people saw Helena's posts, multiple people already knew what really happened. Within hours, the comments on Helena's posts went from sympathetic to accusatory. People started asking pointed questions about her timeline, her motivations, and why her story kept changing. The final straw came when Theodora, Helena's own sister, commented on one of the posts, "Helena, we've talked about this. Just stop. You're making it worse for yourself." Helena, instead of taking the hint, doubled down. She started arguing with people in the comments, getting more and more defensive, and eventually accused Theodora of betraying family and taking sides with outsiders. That's when Theodora apparently decided she'd had enough. She made her own post, tagging Helena, and laid out the entire truth. She explained how Helena had called her after the wedding, told her what really happened, and how she'd figured out that Helena had sabotaged herself. Theodora's post was respectful but firm. She said she loved her sister but couldn't stand by and watch her destroy her relationships with lies. She explained that Helena needed to take responsibility for her actions and stop trying to make herself the victim. The post got shared dozens of times within Helena's social circle. By this morning, everyone who knows Helena has seen both versions of the story, and it's pretty clear which one people believe. But here's where it gets really good. Helena's boss apparently saw the whole Facebook drama. Helena works as an event coordinator for a high-end catering company. Her job literally involves helping people plan perfect weddings and special occasions. When her boss saw posts about Helena trying to sabotage someone's wedding, followed by Helena lying about it on social media and attacking family members who tried to set the record straight, she was not impressed. Helena got called into a meeting this morning and was told that her behavior reflected poorly on the company's values and reputation. She wasn't fired, but she was put on probation and told that any further personal drama that affected the company's image would result in termination. My dad called me this afternoon to give me the update. He sounded exhausted. Apparently, Helena came home from work in hysterics, screaming about how everyone was ganging up on her and how this was all somehow my fault for turning people against her. Dad told her that she'd turned people against herself by lying and trying to cover up what she'd done. He said he was embarrassed by her behavior and that if she didn't start taking responsibility and getting help, he was going to consider a separation. That seemed to finally get through to her. According to Dad, she's agreed to individual therapy and has promised to stop posting on social media about the whole situation. She also apparently wants to write me a proper apology letter and is asking if I'd be willing to read it. Honestly, I'm not sure. Part of me thinks she's only sorry because she got caught and faced consequences, not because she actually understands how wrong her actions were. But another part of me thinks that maybe, if she's really willing to do the work in therapy, there might be hope for some kind of civil relationship in the future. Either way, I'm not in any hurry. She created this mess, and she can take all the time she needs to clean it up properly. The funniest part of all this? Several people have reached out to me after seeing the Facebook drama, including some of Helena's former friends who apparently have their own stories about her behavior over the years. It turns out that trying to sabotage my wedding dress wasn't exactly out of character for her. One woman told me that Helena had accidentally spilled red wine on her white dress at a Christmas party because she thought the woman was getting too much attention from the men there. Another said Helena had spread rumors about her marriage being in trouble because she was jealous of the woman's new house. It's like the wedding incident gave people permission to finally talk about Helena's pattern of behavior, and now it's all coming out. I almost feel bad for her. Almost. But then I remember her standing in my room at 2 a.m. with a bottle of bleach, muttering about ruining my perfect day, and the sympathy disappears pretty quickly. Another update, 1 week later, Helena sent the apology letter. It was interesting. It started off well enough, with her acknowledging what she'd done and saying she understood how wrong it was. But then it devolved into explanations about her difficult childhood and how she's always struggled with feelings of inadequacy and how seeing me have everything come so easily triggered her insecurities. She'd also spent a paragraph explaining how the bleach incident was impulsive and out of character for her, which directly contradicts all the stories that have come out about her past behavior. The letter ended with her asking for my forgiveness and understanding and hoping we could rebuild our relationship stronger than before. I showed it to Dimitri, and his reaction was perfect. She's apologizing for getting caught, not for what she did. He's right. The letter was more about making herself feel better than actually making amends to me. I wrote back a short response thanking her for the letter but explaining that forgiveness is a process, not a destination, and that rebuilding trust would require consistent changed behavior over time, not just words. I also told her that while I wished her well in therapy, I wasn't interested in having regular contact while she worked through her issues. I said I hoped she could respect that boundary. She responded with a much shorter letter accusing me of being cold and unforgiving and saying that she tried her best to make things right. So yeah, she's clearly not there yet. But you know what? I'm okay with that. I have a wonderful husband, a great life, and I don't need her drama. Sometimes the best thing you can do is just let toxic people face the natural consequences of their actions without trying to rescue them from it. My wedding was perfect, my dress was beautiful, and Helena's plan backfired spectacularly. That's really all the justice I need. Thanks for following this wild ride with me, Reddit. It's been therapeutic to share the whole story and get your perspectives. Here's to justice, and the importance of checking your garment bags before pouring bleach on things.